Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Rico Rodriguez to defeat Tim Sylvia. And I'm here to talk about Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green, the main event. Bobby Green is 37 years old, 14-1 as a pro, and he's given up 1 inch of reach to Grant Dawson, who is 29 years old and 21-1 as a pro. I tried to say that slowly, so you wouldn't think it was 21-1. But he has 1 draw, and it is to Ricky Glenn, which we saw 2 years ago, whatever. Grant Dawson impressed early and then seemed to fall off a little bit in round 3, and Ricky Glenn was all over him but couldn't put him away. And Grant Dawson was lucky to walk away with a draw in that fight, in my opinion. But he has shown since then, and in plenty of his other fights, that he's a really strong round 3 fighter in round 3 fights. Here he's fighting his first 5-round fight in the UFC. But Grant, despite losing, or almost losing to Ricky Glenn, having that awful round 3 has typically been his strongest round. He's gotten finishes over Marco Madsen and Jared Gordon as of late. Rear naked choke monster, Grant Dawson. We also saw him get a round 3 knockout with 1 second left over Leonardo Santos. He had a very big round 3 over Julian Erosa as well. Alexa, stop. Holy shit. But Grant Dawson, he's a guy that suffocates you with his grappling. And if you're not, good enough to last, he can get you out of there earlier. He's got 2 round 2 finishes as well over Derek Minner and Mike Trizano. Both in the UFC. Grant's a wrestling monster, a grappling monster, I should say. And I think in this fight, he's so good, he's going to reduce Bobby Green to the role of the striker. This is the striker versus the grappler. And I say that being fully aware of how good Bobby Green is. He's a wrestler first and foremost. And I'm very sure he's a jiu-jitsu black belt. He's got really good jiu-jitsu too. But he's up against it here against Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson's going to be all over him. We saw Grant at his last fight fighting Damir Ismagulov, who I think is back to being one of the more underrated fighters in the world again. But Grant dominated him. And Grant faced an incredible wrestler, Marco Madsen, and dominated him too, and did so with wrestling. He lost like 1 wrestling exchange and then made it a grappling match just by sucking him into a jiu-jitsu match, and then ended up taking over the wrestling battle anyway. Grant Dawson has an incredible top game. Really good top game, and again, when I say top game, I mean whether you're facing your opponent or not, whether he gives you his back or not. Grant Dawson is positionally dominant, and he's a very good finisher as well. He's got 17 finishes in his 20 wins, 13 of them by submission. I'm picking Grant Dawson to win. Grant Dawson's been finished. He's lost once, and it was a finish. This guy, Hugh Pulley, got him with Travis Brown elbows 30 seconds into the fight. And he wasn't unconscious there, but he was fucked up, in my opinion. I don't know. Either way, I don't think that's a fluke or anything, but I think Grant Dawson has shown plenty of times since then that he's gritty, tough, and just too big of a problem on the ground for a lot of guys at the UFC level. This is that next level and that big step up and whatever, but I think he's going to pass this test. I think he's going to pass it with flying colors. Can he get the finish? Sure he can. He's a very dangerous guy, Grant Dawson, and very heavy on top. But will he submit Bobby Green? I don't know. Bobby Green's been tapped twice, and they were both in 2009, 14 years ago. He was gotten a toe hold by David Mitchell and an armbar by Dan Lozon. I ordered that event. UFC Affliction, whatever the fuck. Fedor versus Sylvia, probably. But Grant Dawson should win this fight, in my opinion. I think he's good and athletic on his feet, and he's going to be able to handle himself, athletically in the early going. And it's certainly long enough to make it a grappling bout, but once he does, he's going to start sucking the life out of Bobby Green, and Grant Dawson's only going to get stronger. I envision him getting a finish, to be honest. I think it'll be a TKO, though, kind of like Islam Makhachev had over Bobby Green, where he's positionally fucked, but Bobby is too savvy, jiu-jitsu-wise, to really give up the finish. You know, the position is the finish. But I do think Grant Dawson is so heavy on top where if he secures especially the back, he will be heavy and flatten Bobby Green's skinnier hips down, flatten them out, and pound them out from the back mount. That's how I envision the fight going. Call it a round 2 TKO for Grant Dawson. I was looking to bet on TKO because I thought TKO would be way, way better than betting on submission odds for Grant Dawson, but they actually cut the TKO odds in half compared to his submission odds. And Grant Dawson has 13 submissions as opposed to just 4 TKOs. So they were on to that. They're on to Bobby Green's defense. And yeah, that's pretty much how I see the fight going. Wouldn't surprise me if he went the distance, but 5 rounds is a lot of time to dominate somebody and not get a finish. And I'm envisioning domination from Grant Dawson here. So Grant Dawson, TKO, round 2 is the pick. But the story of the fight is going to be the ground game. That's really more what I'm sure of. As for betting on this, I'm staying away from it. Even the over-under line, minus 210 for under 4.5 rounds, not enticing enough. So yeah, I'm just staying away from this. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.